I know a lot of other people get their hands on these games before I have time to make a video. So for anyone watching who tunes in, I really do appreciate it. I know you could probably get a lot of information from other sources. So I appreciate you listening to me for a bit. So yeah, let's get into it. First off, I'll just say blanket statement. I am about 15 or so hours into the game. I've been to 2 planets so far, and I absolutely love it. And I also want to just say, because I feel like I see this more and more, and I know that like negative voices are the loudest, and it's perfectly okay not to like a game, but it's almost like this need that so many people have to go out there and just try and rip it to shreds. I mean, I'm seeing this with Outlaws. I'm seeing it with Concord. I mean, you see it with all kinds of games. And again, it's okay to critique a game. I've done that before. I think that's totally fine, but it's all about context. And I think when you're going into a dev's like comment thread and saying like, hey, this game sucks.
You suck ass.
I'm never gonna play it, or like, yeah, Ubisoft is trash, or oh, Concord dead in the water, thank goodness. I don't know, this negative energy is so weird. Again, you don't have to like a game, but maybe if you're not really talking critically about it and you're just wanting to like slew hate, just don't. I don't know, like.
Can any single person shut the fuck up about any single thing?
And kind of going off that too, it seems to be like there's confusion with what DLC is. I'm confused. Like, it's like people don't understand what DLC is or what it means, because I see these comments that are like, can't believe you have to pay $100 to get the full game, and they're referring to like the gold edition, which comes with the season pass. But I'm like, you don't. You don't. Just like real life, you don't have to buy everything and you don't have to experience everything. For instance, I don't want to go skydiving. It scares the heck out of me, so therefore I will not pay to do that. Does that mean I've missed out on the full experience of life? Well, maybe to some people, but I love Ubisoft putting out these big season passes because I love huge games that take hundreds of hours to, put time into. Assassin's Creed Valhalla, one of the big complaints was it's too long. And while I can agree with that on a critical level, I liked getting all the DLC. I liked how long it was because I loved spending time in that world. It just seems like there's this sentiment of like, Ubisoft always charging $100 for games, blah, 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 blah. They're not. You can pay $70 for this game. You can get a huge game out of it, much bigger than most games. And if you want more, you can get the DLC. If not, you're fine. It's not like you're being cheated out of the game. That's probably very long-winded, but so yeah, I'm really loving Outlaws, and here are some things I'm just really vibing with. The detail is just on point, and it always is with Ubisoft. Like when you get in these big metros and these big hubs, it's dense. There's stuff going on. The NPCs are, they're playing sabacc, or they're like repairing something, or they're trying to like, they're having conversations with people. And that's another thing. You can like eavesdrop and you can listen to conversations to pick up quests. I love that. That feels very organic, very like in universe. It really feels like it fulfills the Star Wars 1313 fantasy of that kind of like underworld vibe. Along with that, the music is fantastic. I think I mentioned in a previous video that I didn't love the music in Jedi Survivor. I felt it was almost too atmospheric at times, kind of like a Hans Zimmer, sort of like it's just an underlying mood. But I feel like Star Wars is more bombastic, a little bit more classical in that sense. I mean, that is very much John Williams style. And so I really like the music. The main theme is so good. It absolutely slaps. Those like violins, and there's also parts of the score that are kind of like synth infused, which feel very fitting for that underworld aesthetic, where it's kind of grungy. It's a little bit more aggressive and less like, it's less of the French horns and the, nobility kind of vibe of the rebellion and the Jedi. It's really good stuff. The music is great. Yeah, I'm just loving that. One of the things that I really, really admire is the seamless transitions between point A to point B. Star Wars Outlaws devs have done a really good job of conveying travel in a seamless manner. And so I've recorded like a full thing here that I'll sort of speed up just to show you what I mean. But there is no clear loading screen between any point in travel if you don't want to. Now, of course, you can fast travel and that will pop up a loading screen. That's fine. But I'm talking like if you are physically going from one place to another, there's no loading screen. And I love that. I mean, obviously there is a loading screen, but it's hidden and it makes it make sense. So here's like a time lapse of me starting on Tatooine in the cantina. I head to my ship, I get in, I fly out into the atmosphere. Now, this is where one of the big loading screens are, is when your ship is moving through the like stratosphere, and that's a very smart use of that. They could have easily made it a loading screen like Starfield, but no, they didn't. They made it, it has style, it has in-universe feel to it. So you get out into space, and then you can hit the hyperdrive. You go through that. There's no loading screen there either. I mean, again, it is loading in those periods, but it is keeping you in game. It's keeping you in the driver's seat. I just love that. And then you get there. You land on the planet, and then you're off. And here I go back into a bar on Toshara. That kind of, again, point A to point B, no loading screens in between, and yet you feel you've made a very extensive journey, because I've literally gone from one planet to another, but I didn't have to stop. I didn't look down at my phone while it loaded. I was there, present. I really admire that, and I know that a lot of work was probably put in to make that feel the way it does, and yeah, just thank you, Outlaws devs. I think that really makes all the difference. I feel like Outlaws is sort of like the greatest hits of like a lot of great space games, where I feel Starfield feels kind of empty in a lot of places. Star Wars Outlaws has made the decision of like, no, we're going to give you these focused planets that you're going to go to, and it's going to feel lived in. And I really appreciate that. I think it works really well for what this game is trying to do. And I know some people will probably be complaining like, it's not like No Man's Sky where you can seamlessly, fly everywhere. And yeah, that's super cool in No Man's Sky. I have a lot of respect for No Man's Sky, but trying to compare narrative heavy games with No Man's Sky is weird to me, because they're very different. But anyway, yeah, it just feels like a really nice mix of a lot of things I like in other games. And now just briefly onto the photo mode. So photo mode's okay. It's not as good as Jedi Survivor, but it's pretty good. And again, I gotta say, a photo mode at all is appreciated. Like, I don't want any dev to ever hear critiques and to be like, people don't like it, it's not worth it. It is so worth it. Photo modes make all the difference. And just being able to use a free cam, let alone all the other features they have packed in here, is amazing. Probably my biggest gripe with the photo mode is the lack of range. It's so restrictive, and it makes no sense why. There are times where I'm like on these huge vast planets, I'm on Tatooine, and I want to get a huge wide shot of like the town that I'm in, and this camera will just not go that far back. I mean, it's so limited feeling, and I can't see why, because there's so much empty space that like I don't see what the problem would be to let the camera just go wild. I do like the options that it has like on the main tab, where it's like highlights, midtones, and it is actually adjusting those. Like sometimes when it says like highlights, it's just like, I don't even know, cranking like white values. This seems to actually be adjusting the midtone section of the light, shadows and highlights. That's really, really helpful. I love that they have a time of day slider. This is awesome. The depth of field too is pretty good. It's not, to me, as beautiful as Jedi Survivor. I think Jedi Survivor has the most realistic depth of field bokeh effect I've seen in any video game, but this is pretty good. It looks really fantastic on my PS5 and my OLED TV. I'm just really pleased, and yeah, I'm taking so many shots. So, and it's also got your 90-degree tilt, which I didn't think it would, because Massive developed this game, and Avatar was out earlier this year and it did not have a 90-degree tilt. So I was like, what? I like that you can hide Nyx and Kay. Speaking of Kay, the voice acting to me is sort of hit and miss. So I think her interactions with like Nyx and when she's being like jokey, it's quite good. Like it comes across great. The vibe and like the tone is really nice. But she does this thing, and this is probably more of a directing issue than the actor herself. But you'll see this in a lot of games where it's like characters have this sort of underlying stupidness to them. And what I mean by that is like there's this part where a stormtrooper is like, hey, do you have credentials? Like we need to get you through this gate. And Kay's like, what, and again, this is in a lot of games where characters have this sort of just like, if anyone were to hear you respond that way, they would go, why are you acting suspicious? The stormtrooper would be like, what are you hiding? Like, why are you acting this way? And he's like, the stormtrooper is like, I identify you as, I don't know, he says some name that is not her name. And she's like, yeah, that's my name, all right. It's that kind of like weird, you're always sounding guilty and suspicious. I don't know. A lot of the lines come off that way. But overall, I am loving this game. If you are a fan of, look, you know your tastes. If you like this kind of game, don't listen to people saying like, oh, it's trash. Like, yeah, they may not like it. Like, if you know what kind of game you like, you know this is going to be for you. There are no huge bugs, there are no huge problems. It plays very well, and it's just really enjoyable. It is definitely one of, if not the best Star Wars game I've ever played. We'll have to see where the story goes, because I think Jedi Survivor had a extremely strong story. But at the very least, it'll probably be my number 2, because it is just a blast. And yeah, Kay, Nix, it's fun. Yeah, let me know what you think. I'll probably have a more formal photo mode review coming out for this soon. And yeah, until then, thanks for watching. Bye.